In the book of Acts, we see many of the early churches being established. And it helps us to know what it is for us to live as Christians today, as we look at how they lived in the early church, in the purity of their devotion to Christ, and also the basic church structure, church life, how to deal with problems. We find, particularly in the book of Acts, when Paul went around and established churches into different cultures and different locations. He came to Greece and established many churches in Greece. I'm here in Corinth, where Paul established a church. He came here, stayed here for a good while, went to the synagogue, preached there, and went among the people, got a gathering of people together, established them here in this city. And this city is an interesting city. But before I get to that, Paul then went off and done missionary journeys. And as he was going around, he was always praying for, concerned about the church of Corinth and all the other churches in Ephesus and Thessalonica. And while he was here, he really wanted to establish it and then move on. But when he was moving on, when he was going around, he heard of different problems that were happening in the city, particularly in the church, and how it was influencing and affecting the church, its life and its witness and its growth and its maturity. He wrote 2 letters. He actually wrote 3, but we have only got copies of 2, 1 Corinthians and 2 Corinthians. I want you to join with me as we study 1 and 2 Corinthians. Because Corinthian church had many different problems going on. This city was an amazing city. To the left of me is the temple of Apollos. And then there's many other temples all around. It was a very vibrant city of different types of worship going on. The reason being for that is because this city was a port city with lots of different people from Egypt, from Rome, from Greece, from Israel, from all over. This city is a small little landmass, 4 miles from one part of the sea to the other part of the sea, with 2 big land masses. So rather than go around treacherous waters, the port would come and people would come and land here, but then they would actually literally sometimes with their small ships, there was a road, with a special road where they'd lift up the ships and bring them across the 4 miles rather than trying to go 2 days journey around the sea, and it was safer. And sometimes what they would do is they'd land here, get all their goods here, unload them, and then cart them the 4 miles across and connect to another ship. And because of that, there was lots of people here, lots of wealth going on, lots of commerce going on. It was a gatekeep place. And that brought culture, it brought beauty, it brought prosperity, but it also brought a lot of immorality. It brought all the different religions. This was a really melting pot. And that's where the church was. Very much like modern churches today. We're often in cities that are melting pots with lots of stuff going on. In the city, there was also a very strong faith culture of promiscuity. Right up behind me was the temple up on the mountain, up in Upper Corinth, a place of safety if they were being attacked. And there was lots of stuff going on up there, but there was also different temples going up there. But one of the main temples was a temple to Aphrodite, like aphrodisiac. This was a temple to fertility. This was a temple where a lot of sexual stuff was engaged with the prostitutes of the temple within sexual rites. And they say there was possibly 1,000 prostitutes there. And this was a normal culture. That was just in the temple alone. So with that in mind, with the commerce, with the different people coming and going, and with the fact that nobody even knew who you were, and all that was going on. It's like Las Vegas or like Amsterdam. Well, Amsterdam to some degree. It was like that. What stays here, stays here. If there's even a term to Corinthicize because you were being wild. So it was a wild city, beautiful city, marble pathways, lots of amazing stuff going on, very beautiful, but a lot of other stuff going on that was creeping in the church of selfishness for money. There was people who would prosper who were not nobility, which was different because they would do business. So they didn't know how to handle that. And there's many different things. Now that influenced the church. In the church, there was problems with who should we follow? Who's the best teacher? In the church, there was issues about sexuality, sleeping with prostitutes, sleeping around, sleeping with family members even. That affected the church. It wasn't just outside the church. There was issues concerning about how we should deal with stuff when people want to buy food and the food is connected to a temple worship. And does that mean then if I eat of that food that I'm a Christian, but I'm also, worshipping the god Apollos or any of the other many gods in the area. So is it a case, can you be a Christian and be something else as well? Or even if you are a Christian and you have freedom, what if others see you eating at that temple or after getting the food from that temple, even though you yourself know you have nothing to do with that? How does it affect the others? Then there was also issues with regards to lawsuits, because there was business going on here. How do you deal with when one businessman, after selling the purple robe of another businessman at a cutter price, or different land problems? So there was all that. How do you deal with those issues? How do you deal with the issues of the gifts of the Spirit when there's freedom here, and there was a freedom of expression in the church? The Pentecostal Spirit-filled church that was here had lots of immaturity going on and fractions going on. How do you deal with that? There was also the freedom that was never given in any way of any religion or any other church or grouping, I should say, that in the Christianity, women were again exalted to be equal. But at the same time, maybe not always understanding the protocols within church. How do you deal with that? So there was those issues going on. How do you deal with the gifts of the Spirit when there was maybe someone come on and they were being used to some other kind of erratic worship or craziness in another temple? How does that function then within the church? How does their order, yet at the same time staying truly spiritual in the church? What about communion? What about, how do we deal with that? What is it? Where is it coming from? What is it when someone who's rich who wants to just eat and someone who's poor, should I sit beside him? Who gets the place to sit? The structures of authority. Also issues about the resurrection of the dead. Has it happened? Hasn't? So there's all these issues going on in the Corinthian church. How do you deal with church discipline when somebody does go astray? How are we going to be the temple of God in the midst of all these temples? How are we going to be the genuine citizens of heaven, carrying something of the preciousness of Jesus in our lives with all these other things going on? So I want you to join with me as we go through 1 and 2 Corinthians, as we go through it and explore what it is to be a healthy church in a crazy world, a modern church in the modern world, because that's what it was like here. How do we become citizens of heaven in the midst of Corinth, and to be truly believers with the blessed hope, not only today, but of the future? So join with me as we go through the next few weeks in Good News Church, going through Corinthians, and looking at these problems and asking ourselves, how can we be a healthy church in a modern world?